Hi everyone, today I will explain how the data collection in the Heat Cognition project will be coordinated and handled. As quite some questions have already arrived us regarding this, please watch this video carefully and also see that we will give you a description below for a detailed explanation. As you already know from our prior communication, we aim to collect 2,000 participants in every selected city wherever possible, in a natural experiment style. For this, we will assess the first 500 participants in the control condition. That means during an average seasonal, not too hot temperature before the period of extreme heat starts, and then 1,000 during a period of extreme heat, and another 500 in the control condition after the extreme heat period. Please note that this means that we will have a between subjects design. The temperature thresholds for the control and the heat condition, so for both of these, will be priorly defined and communicated by us. Further, we are also developing an alert system that will send out notifications when the temperature thresholds for all of the two conditions are expected to be met. Please note one very important thing that I think can lead to a lot of misunderstandings. The data collection will be handled fully through panel providers, so we will only allow for samples from professional panel providers. And furthermore, the HeatCog coordinators, so Kim, Selena, and me, we will select one or two panel providers who will cover all cities. That means that you as collaborators will not choose your own panel provider or collect data yourselves at universities, but rather the data collection will be handled through a central panel provider, because in this way we get much better rates, so it will be a lot cheaper, and we also can be sure that a similar data quality is given throughout all the different countries. Currently, we are negotiating with MSI and TGM Research because they also have experience in doing prior big team science projects, and also they already confirmed that they can deliver 2,000 participants in all of the cities that we were suggesting. So the teams, you as the collaborating teams, will be coordinating with this chosen panel provider that will be communicated by us beforehand. And then also this panel provider will be handling the funding invoices with you directly. I will come to this in a bit more detail. Now I will explain a bit what collaborating teams are responsible for and how the financing and coordination of data collection will work. For this, the teams who are now signed up and allocated to specific cities will be responsible for three main tasks. The first task is local adaptation. So the questionnaire will be already translated, as we have support with language translation from the PSA, who's doing a lot of different big team science projects. But of course, additionally to that, we need the local collaborators in every country to check if the translation sounds good, if it makes sense, and especially if there is anything that must be adapted to local circumstances, local cultures. So it's really important that you basically check the whole questionnaire for local adaptation. Then also the local teams will be responsible for coordination and logistics with the panel provider. I will detail this out on the next slide, but the coordination task mainly refers to instigating the start of data collection at the right times based on the temperature thresholds with the panel provider. And then the third task is the funding through the panel provider invoice. So the sample from the panel provider will have to be paid maybe in advance, or at least the payment process will have to be started when the data collection starts. So payment will be done through invoices that are handed out by the panel provider. We are also giving more details for this later. But these are the three main tasks related to the data collection. Please note, in some cases and some cities, local teams will do all of the three tasks. So they will adapt to local conditions if necessary, coordinate and do the logistics with the panel provider, and then also fund the data collection in their own country and city. In other underfunded and limited resource regions, the non-local teams and the HeatCog team will cover the funding. So the local teams will be responsible only for adaptation and coordination and logistics, and the funding will be covered through other teams or our team. Okay, so how does coordination and logistics with the panel provider work? What does this mean? So let's detail out a bit how this works. The teams will be allocated to data collection in one of our cities in their own country. It doesn't necessarily mean the same city where the university is based, because we also have multiple teams per country, but rather a city that is in the same country as you. Then throughout a larger time window of the year, you will have to monitor the control and heat conditions and if they are met. We will also have an alert system that we're currently working on that will support you here and inform you about when the thresholds for the right temperatures and therefore the right time for data collection is expected to be met. When there is an alert and you get the information that there will be probably the right time for data collection coming up, both for the control and the hot condition, you as teams will have to verify and check whether the temperature threshold is actually met with local weather data, and therefore decide whether it's the right time and the thresholds are met and that the target city is correct and now ready for data collection. If yes, then the teams start to coordinate with the panel provider. So basically you are responsible for monitoring the right conditions, and then once the condition is met for either control or hot condition, then you will instigate the data collection with the panel provider, who will then start and end the data collection at the right times. Now, please note that, as I already said, there are two types of cases in this project. Cases where the data collection can be fully handled and like all the different tasks, so adaptation, coordination, and funding can all be handled by the local country teams, and cities where the data collection will be split up a bit, where adaptation and coordination will lie with the local teams, but the funding will lie with teams who indicated that they can fund data collection also in different countries and support data collection in limited resources countries. So I brought two examples here. So for example, the data collection in Berlin, which is in Germany. There are different local country teams from Germany, for example, from the University of Cologne or from the University of Aachen. They will take responsibility for the adaptation, the coordination, and the funding with the panel provider for the data collection in Berlin. On the other hand, for example, in Accra, we have local country teams from the University of Ghana who will help us with adaptation and who will be responsible for the coordination of the data collection with the panel provider, while the invoices of the panel provider will go to one of the teams that indicated that they can fund data collection in different countries, for example, teams of the University of Vienna, who will then only handle the data collection funding. So this is a detailed out example case for the first case, where adaptation, coordination, and funding all lies with the local country teams. Basically, you get assigned to a city, you get all the important information from us, you're then responsible for your city, for the adaptation, testing of links. You also handle the upcoming invoice details and monitor weather conditions for data collection. Once you get an alert from our system, you're responsible to check if the control or heat conditions are actually met, and you also double check to make sure that this is true with local weather data. And when it is true and it is met, then you contact the market research panel provider and instigate the payment and instruct them to start the data collection. Double check that everything works. You then keep in contact with the panel provider throughout the data collection, and you check how many people they collect, if it's all met, if the sample is full, or the temperature changes drastically, so you fall out of the threshold, then you instruct to stop the data collection. In the second case, where funder and coordinator are split up, it basically works the exact same. So the local teams are responsible for adaptation, they're responsible for contact with the panel provider and for monitoring the weather conditions, for once they get an alert, check that the local thresholds are met, and instigate data collection with the panel provider contact point. The only difference is in this case, the funding teams, once the data collection window comes up, have ideally already handled the invoice details or are handling the invoice details at this point with the panel provider and pay the invoice in advance. And then also get a confirmation once the data collection is complete. So basically they are responsible for funding. Please note that in case anything goes wrong with the data collection, this is true for both cases, then the fact that you already gave funding will of course be acknowledged, and you will not get any problems if there is some problem coming up with data collection. Please note also that the degree of collaboration, so in how much the coordination team in the local countries and the funding teams, how much you collaborate, is completely optional. That's up to you. We leave that up to you. So you will get the contact details of each other. If you want to work closer together in coordination, you're happily invited to, but it's not necessary, and you can also split it up fully, saying that you, for example, as a funding team, are just interested in contribute the funding and the data collection and coordination lies with the local team only. So that is fully up to you. We'll leave that for you to decide. So lastly, how will the payment of data collection be coordinated? As I already explained multiple times now, we will allocate all teams that said that they can fund everywhere to the cities. So we will do the pre-allocation of your team to a certain city and thereby build up this co-financing system. However, if you have been allocated to a city where you can, for some reason, not support with funding, please reach out to us, and this is all preliminary, so we can still work on it. All invoices will be handled through the panel provider. That's also an important point because we have been receiving some questions for this. The payments will be made directly to the panel provider. The invoices will directly go to you. So University of Constance will not be included in this process. It might be necessary to pay some of the invoices before the data collection starts. This depends a bit on the panel provider we will be choosing, but we will communicate this early in advance. If there is a situation where you need to spend some budget much earlier than the data collection is organized, or you have some restriction to when the budget needs to be spent, we can arrange invoice and payment settlements as it's needed and required. In this case, please just contact us. And this is it for now. I hope this presentation cleared up a lot of the questions. If not, feel free to reach out. Thank you all for being on board. We're very excited and happy. And yeah, we're looking forward to get this started.